So hi to everyone who is watching and listening. Welcome to my Culture Talks, a series of interviews with people from all over the world who are sharing their stories and experiences living and working in different countries, and talking about their experiences and perhaps some similarities or differences between those countries. So today I'd like to welcome Marina. She is a cross-cultural consultant based in Moscow. And I also found out that she is an author, producer, and host of a show called International Business Ethics. But we will get to that a little bit later, maybe. Having lived in various countries and being fluent in, I think, 4 languages, as far as I know, Marina has developed a strong interest in different cultures and promotes, also on her show, cross-cultural diversity. So thank you, Marina, for being my guest today.
Thank you very much, Martina, for inviting me. And thank you for the beautiful picture that's in the background. The picture of Moscow, the city where I'm living at the moment, where I'm from, in fact. And wow, I'm really impressed with the way you do your shows and the questions that you put to your guests. So it's great to be talking to a cross-cultural soulmate here, because I think we both are doing some very interesting work when it comes to building bridges and breaking stereotypes. So it's always nice to be talking to somebody like that. Yes, I have started a project called International Business Ethics because I thought it was very, very important to generate awareness of what cross-cultural communication in business is, what goes wrong, what goes right, how to make sure that we get things on a good start and off to a good start when we deal with our partners abroad, or when we only start making our first steps abroad. So I thought it was interesting to invite people who've had this international experience. The show is in Russian, so I'm kind of thinking of doing something similar in English, so that I could, have a wider audience maybe, and introduce some of the topics that concern a lot of people, people from different cultures and different countries, and they could participate and they could share their stories. So yeah, it's I think it's something, cross-cultural competence. It's something that is very, very important to develop. It's a skill of the future that people should look at more closely, because a lot of people, when you say cross-cultural communication, they not always understand what exactly is it that you do. And when you tell them what it is about, what it is exactly that you do, and they start thinking about it, you give them a lot of food for thought, and then they say, oh yes, it is really, really important. Because a lot of people who are in the international business, or who study, live, or work abroad, they take a lot of things for granted. And when you tell them about the cultural adaptation, the culture shock, and other things that people like us encounter when we are exposed to a different culture and live in a different country, they get surprised and say, oh yes, if only I had known about these things before, things would have gone differently for me. So yeah, it is a very, very important thing to learn. And I'm very glad that I'm doing this work.
I'm sure it's very interesting to hear all the different stories. That was also one of the reasons why I started to do the Culture Talks, to interview people who have had similar experiences living abroad, and kind of also avoiding that culture shock that a lot of people have when they move abroad, and think like you said just right now, if I had known that before, things have gone differently, and things like that. So it's also in my area, it's becoming more and more important to have those intercultural competency courses, but it's not as widespread as it is in other countries and other cities. I don't know if you have had any experiences, you know, in different countries doing your work. Have you seen any differences, you know, or the interest is different than in
That's a very
Moscow?
good question. Actually, this is a very good question because we can work at home and we can work in other countries and share our experiences with other people, not just conducting training or sessions or master classes in our native language, but we can take our work elsewhere, of course. Yes, I've been doing things like that little by little, but at the moment, I'm mostly focused on Russians doing business abroad and sort of developing that side of things. But yes, I am trying to look further and beyond the national boundaries, so to speak. So yes, it's very, very, very interesting. But especially right now when we're all working from home, I keep an eye on what's happening in the field and what other professionals in this field do, the seminars that they organize. And I've noticed that there are a lot of people from different countries sharing their stories, their experience with wider audience. So yes, it's something very, very valuable and rich from the professional standpoint. Certainly very, very enriching.
Mm-hmm. So you've lived in several countries. In which countries did you actually live and work?
I lived in Japan. I lived and worked in Japan, in India, in the US, and the UK. The US bit of my life, it's, well, I spent my early childhood in the US. I also went to study to the US.
Mhm.
As a kid, I lived in New York, and later as an adult, as a young adult, maybe I should say, as a student, I lived in Texas, in Austin. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. And I also lived and studied in the UK, in
Mhm.
London. Then I lived in India with my parents the second half of my childhood. And I also returned to India much later as an adult because I had a lot of friends there. And it was interesting for me to go back to the country where I was growing up. So I was, as I say, I have a soft spot in my heart for the country, for
Mhm.
India. And in Japan, I spent 1 year of my life living and working there
Mhm.
as an instructor, and I worked in education, English language teaching.
Mhm.
So I worked there. It was a very, very interesting experience for me, life transforming in many ways because
Mhm.
I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about different culture and how to adjust to a new culture and how to feel comfortable in a new culture. Because before Japan, I think I more or less adjusted to a new country and a new environment very quickly, very comfortably. I don't remember feeling, the like long stages of culture shock. I did have a culture shock, maybe, but those stages just went away very, very fast. So I don't remember feeling any pain of adjustment and readjustment. But in Japan, things happened in a different way, the way they are described in books. Because before Japan, I thought, oh, I've read a lot of books on theory, culture shock theory, adaptation. And to be honest, at that time, I I don't think I could agree with a lot of things because I thought, well, I had already lived in so many countries, I've traveled, I visited other countries as well, but I had never experienced anything the way it is described in the books.
Mhm.
Yes, little did I know, when I came to Japan, it all started happening just so accurately the way it was described in the books that I was really shocked by that as well. So I thought, never underestimate theory. So it's
Mhm.
all written very, very accurately by the people who have lived probably in more than one country, and they know what they are saying.
Looking at all those countries that you've been to, India and Japan, they're so different in ways and how they communicate and what is important and what kind of values they have. So I'm sure you've had a certain culture shock, but you prepared, which is actually a lot more than other people do. So you've read the theory and you've read the books, but others just go there without preparing and falling into certain traps, maybe.
Yeah, well, there are people who are brave enough who go to a foreign country without any prior preparation.
Mm.
And I do admire them, but on the other hand, they, how shall I put it? They don't know what they're doing really, because maybe that's the way for them to grow sort of personally. They throw themselves out of the comfort zone, so to speak, and they want to experience new things, like they in the extreme way. But the more homework you do before traveling abroad, before going to work abroad, the better for you. The more you will gain out of your overseas experience. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I came to Japan prepared, and when I had bouts of culture shock, I knew that there is nothing wrong with me. That
Mhm.
is just the stage that I'm going through, and it'll go away. All I have to do is just do the right thing, kind of be positive, do the things that I like, hang out with people that I like, and just try to enjoy myself despite the difficulty of adaptation. And I think I could give some advice here to somebody wanting to travel abroad, or maybe somebody who will be watching us and going through the stages of culture shock. Before, even when you are in your new country, what you can do is create different social networks.
Mhm.
For example, the people that you work with, that's one network. And then the people that you hang out with outside of work, they could be the locals, they could be fellow expatriates. And it is important to have contact with a fellow expatriates, even your fellow countryman or other foreigners living abroad, because you can share your stories with them.
Mhm.
And that helped me in Japan as well. I couldn't share some of my issues with my Japanese friends or colleagues because they were from that culture and they could have taken it the wrong way. So I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Although they were very great, they were very, very nice people and they helped me culturally. But whenever I had sort of, like difficult stages of culture shock or the pit of despair, as they call it in some books, I talked to my expatriate friends and they said, "Oh, don't worry, everything's fine, it'll be okay. We went through that. So we've been there. We know how you feel." And that gave me a lot of encouragement because I was reassured that there was nothing wrong with me. It's
Mhm.
just the stage that I'm going through. So it is important to create your social network because the people around you will help you to get out of the pit of despair, to go back to normality. Some people, they're introverted people, they're extroverted people. And for somebody who is more introverted, I'd say make sure you bring your favorite books with you, your favorite music, something that reminds you of home, something that makes you feel good. It's important to have that.
Mhm.
Also, your comfort food, like things that you're used to having at home. Start making these things in your new country, cooking something like familiar, and maybe having potluck parties. So do something to get your mind off homesickness or
Mhm.
you know um, things like that. Something that will help you and get back to normal.
So, did you actually feel homesick at one point?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay.
And I have a funny story to tell you. I actually started recording funny stories and just sort of cross-cultural storytelling. I explored cross-cultural storytelling in my YouTube channel, where I share some of the things that happened to me in the past, how I overcame culture shock, how I adjusted to other cultures, some things about the Russian culture that may be surprising or shocking. And in one of the stories, I talk about the strong connection that there is between the food that we are used to having at home and our adaptation to a new culture and life abroad. For example, when we live abroad and we've been living there for a long time, we start missing familiar smells, familiar tastes, and sometimes it's just so painful. You just want to eat something that you were, you liked eating as a child, or your mom cooked for you, and you really start missing it so much. So when I went back to Moscow, when I was living in Japan for maybe 8 months or so, I had a break, had a vacation, so went home and went back to Japan with a suitcase full of Russian food. There was nothing in my suitcase apart from food. There was no clothes because I already had enough clothes there. And I thought, no, I'm going to take everything with me that I cannot buy in Japan. And believe it or not, it was very difficult to find beetroot in Japan because there's no beetroot in Japan. You can find it, but you really have to look hard, and there's special supermarkets, and it cannot always be found there. So yeah, and one of the famous Russian dishes is the soup called borscht. It's the purple color. See, maybe you've heard of it. Have you ever tried it?
I've tried it once, yeah, but that was it, to be honest.
Maybe you didn't like it, but yeah, it's so there are so many different recipes, so many different ways of cooking it, but you just have to have beetroot. This is the major ingredient that gives the soup its purple color. It's very, very unique color. And I mean, you can leave out some other ingredients, but beetroot is just the main one, without which it is impossible to call the soup that you cook borscht. So yeah, I had to put it in the suitcase. And then some other things, the cookies and biscuits, Russian chocolate, just, little things there that I couldn't find in Japan. Japan, I have to say, is a country that has great food, great culinary traditions, and I really, really enjoy its food. But sometimes you just want something from home that will make you feel comfortable and happy. So I had that in my suitcase. And when I landed in Tokyo, and then I had to take a plane to go to Hiroshima because that's where I lived, I was so embarrassed. I had my suitcase and going through all the checks, I really just thought, oh my God, what are these people thinking? Like, looking at that, there's nothing inside my suitcase apart from food. And but that only lasted a couple of minutes, that embarrassment, and then it was over. So yeah, we do funny things when we live abroad.
Yeah, I mean, when I lived in the States, the first thing that I missed was pumpkin seed oil, which we have here in Austria most of the time. And when my parents visited me at some point, I said, okay, you have to bring the pumpkin seed oil first. And then some bread as well, the black bread that usually in the US you cannot find really. It's not the same thing. So it was also interesting when my mom brought it over, because she had to explain it at customs, why she's bringing that. And I think she also tried to get in some bacon of some kind, but she had to leave it at the customs. So yeah, that did not go through. But I remember that story as well. Yeah, now you can get almost anything, also the pumpkin seed oil. So it's no big deal in the US anymore, but you pay way more than you would do here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, because it's imported. And it's interesting. There is a friend of mine who lives in the States, in America, in California, and she also makes her YouTube videos. And she once shared a story about the store that she goes to buy all the Russian food that she misses whenever that happens. And it's amazing. They have food there, and they have everything, basically just food from all over the world. And I was really impressed. So yeah, they've done very well. I mean, the people who go there, the expatriate community must have been really, really big there. And they sort of, they are the ones who demand these products. So there's a supply and demand relationship there that kind of motivates the local buyers to buy other things and expand.
Yeah, but on the other hand, they just did a really good job in terms of culture adaptation and getting the food and the brands in,
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
country, which is not that easy when you think
No,
about
no,
it.
no, no.
Japan, yes, it influenced you a lot, I guess, or that's the feeling I have. Which country was the most influential for you as a person or your character, maybe?
I think each country played its own role in its own way. India, certainly, because I was a kid, and I came to India when I was 10, and I left India when I was about 15. So my formative years were spent there. Then certainly the UK in some way, and the US when I was an adult, because when I was a kid, I don't remember much of it. But much later, when I was a student, of course, I learned a lot. And maybe at that time, I started wondering about cross cultural communication in a more, let's say, professional way. I was getting into it and looking at it more maybe seriously and wondering, asking myself a lot of questions, and wondering about a lot of things that shaped up much, much, much later in my life as I picked up more knowledge and more experience of the field. So yeah, I think it's hard to say which country played a bigger role because each of these places played its own part.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I'm grateful to all of them and to all the people that I met in those countries. I
Hmm.
still remember all of them and our interaction.
But when you think about all the values in the different countries in India and in Japan and the US and the UK and Russia, of course, what would you say are where your values, where do they come from? Like, are they mostly Russian values that you live your life by, or did you pick up some of the other values?
That's a great question, Martina, because I think those of us who travel a lot, they wonder about their own identity. So, who am I? What do I stand for? And I wonder about that too a lot because I think whenever I travel and I meet different people, I like to introduce myself as a citizen of the world, although I know that I'm not quite yet the citizen of the world.
Yeah.
I'd like to, travel to more countries and maybe work in other countries or have contacts, professional contacts in other countries. But it's hard to say. I mean, I did not. I mean, of course, when I travel abroad, I introduce myself as a Russian living in Moscow.
Mhm.
But I'm also ethnically not 100% Russian. I'm half Georgian. Georgia is is a country, a former republic of the Soviet Union, but now
Mhm.
independent, a separate state. So that too influenced me when I was a kid, growing up in a bicultural family. So it's hard to say, really. I do not stick to any particular, nationality or ethnicity, and I just like having all these cultures in me
Mhm.
because it makes me so much richer, and I just want to keep all that and maybe explore more and
Mhm.
invite cultures into my life.
So, which cultures or countries are on your list to go to or travel to or live?
Oh,
Hmm.
right now we can only dream about
I
that.
know.
But it's still nice to dream about these things because I'm fingers crossed this period, this complexity will end at some point, hopefully, and we'll restart traveling and
Mm.
seeing each other. Hmm, where would I like to go? I would like to go to London, where I haven't been in ages, in a
Mhm.
long, long, long while. So I'd like to go there and see my friends and just go to the places that I liked to sort of reunite with the past in a sense, but nice memories. So I do that. then go to the countries in Asia that I haven't been to, some of the countries that I have been to, some of the countries that I haven't been to yet. I'd like to do that. Middle East, of course. I've been to some, but there are so many others that I haven't seen. Yeah, I mean, I just could
The
write
list
such a
goes
long
on
list there.
and on.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I was beginning to get carried away really because it's nice to dream.
When you think back, traveling and living abroad, were there any expectations that you had before you went that were not met at some point when you lived there?
I tried not to have any expectations. I kind of tried to program myself in such a way that I'll be open to whatever happens
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do my homework, but I should be prepared if things go in a different direction or differently. When I lived in the UK, I was a student. And of course, when you're a student, you move into a dorm, and living in a dorm may take some time getting used to,
Mm-hmm.
because if you've lived all your life at home, then you move to a dorm, it's a different setting. So you have to adjust to living there. You have to buy new things. You have to make your little room, your new home, a comfortable place to go back to after classes. So that takes a while. And that, of course, is could be challenging when you first arrive and there's nothing in the room and you have to, just kind of like build your new home from scratch. Same thing happened in Japan when I moved into my apartment. It was kind of empty. There were like some basic necessities there, but it was pretty much empty. And my apartment didn't have a bed to sleep on, because the Japanese people sleep on futons on the
Mm-hmm.
floor, and then they roll everything and put into big closets that they have. So for me, that was something kind of shocking, but I got used to that. I bought something like kind of like a wooden frame. I don't know, just something to put your mattress on,
Mm-hmm.
because like proper beds, well, they do exist, but it takes time to find them, and they're very, very expensive. But what I bought indeed was a very good substitute. So it was a piece of furniture too,
Mm-hmm.
that was nice to have in my living room and in the bedroom. I mean, it was like one big room. It was a studio apartment, so it was everything: living room, bedroom, and my study. Yeah, all
Mm-hmm.
there, three in one. So yeah, when you first move somewhere to a new place, you have to be ready for like the short period of discomfort, but
Mm-hmm.
again, keep telling yourself that that too shall pass and everything will be fine. Like 2 3 weeks down the road, you'll get adjusted to your new place and you'll be fine.
Did you notice any big differences when you worked with other people in other countries, like in India compared to Russia? What was the biggest difference?
Well, I think differences exist, and they are something that keep us in good mental shape, because we always have to um, be sort of aware of what we say, what we do, how people react to that. Some people are very, very, very sensitive, and people, of course, are very different in the way they treat certain things, like, for example, time, your personal space, the questions that they ask you about your life, about your
Mm-hmm.
private life, about your work, your interests. And in some cultures, it's perfectly all right to ask you questions about your life that in other cultures may seem as an intrusion, or
Mm-hmm.
so you have to know about it as well, and be prepared to answer these questions, or to tell people that you're not comfortable maybe answering these questions. So things like that. People differ in the way they communicate with each other and what they see acceptable or unacceptable. So when you are exposed to different cultures and you are working in diverse teams, you have to be aware of these things and not to take things personally. You
Mm-hmm.
have to know how to handle these questions or remarks that people make or, say.
I think we work or we live in a very diverse world, and even when you work in international companies, then you come across different cultures, and it's always important and essential to stay open-minded and see how they communicate and react. Just stay open-minded and don't have that many expectations. And I think you said it in the beginning that you know yourself very well. So before you go anywhere, it's important to just ask yourself, okay, what kind of values do you live your life by? And then go from there, because I think this will change how you react, of course, and how you live abroad, yeah, and talk
Certainly.
to other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So knowing yourself is essential. I think a lot of people underestimate that, and that's why they have a lot of problems abroad. A lot of expatriates try to run away from something, from
Mhm.
even from themselves, but they'll always keep bumping into themselves.
Yeah.
And that has to be done as well. That is part of your homework. That has to be done at home. You have to do a
Yeah.
lot of self-analysis before you go abroad. Or if you go to a country that's very, very different from what you're used to, you can do some self-analysis there, because a lot of things will be much, much, much sharper and more kind of acute or vivid in a new environment. So yeah,
Yeah.
but self-analysis is very, very important. True.
Yeah. I also agree that you should start doing it when you're at home. Especially when it comes to a country like Japan or India. I'm just looking at Austria right now, where I was born. And when we compare those countries and cultures, they're so different in a way. And when you look or when you read books and all the theory, and you know what kind of values they have, as long as you don't know what your own values are and what is important to you, you will end up, like you said, bumping into a wall and bumping into yourself and realizing, okay, what not realizing what's going on. Would you say that living in different countries or in another country, even one, has changed your way of seeing the world?
Oh, of course. At one point, I even thought, oh, I have enough of these cultures and cultural mixes, and I'm tired because there's so much. There is so much,
Yeah.
and sometimes too much. But later, I just thought, oh, it's great, and I started appreciating things more because there are people who've never traveled anywhere, they've never been anywhere, but that's also fine because they could be living very harmonious lives, and if it's working for them, that's fine. But then I just want to explore more, because the more you travel, the more you challenge yourself, the more you discover about yourself. So I want to do more of that. But yes, when things go back to normal, to the old normal, not the new normal, but the
Yeah.
old normal. um, yeah, it would be great to restart doing the things that we all liked and
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
kind of put off for some time.
Mhm. So, what are your plans for the future in terms of your business, your career, or your YouTube channel, or what are your plans?
Well, the thing is, it's hard to plan anything definite right now because we live in the VUCA world that's volatile, uncertain, complex, uh, etc. And ambiguous. I think this is what A stands for. But
Mm.
yeah, because we just have to be very flexible. I think this year has taught us to be flexible. That flexibility is a very, very important asset, if not the most important one. So I'd like to keep doing my cross-cultural work, and I'd like to grow my channel, of course, and find other ways of interacting with people, become more let's say, more deeply into the field, learn new things. I try to constantly upgrade myself, because this is what I think a lot of us do at the moment. You know, the 3L model, lifelong learning. All of us, I think, have taken that on board, because this is very important. We learn new things, new skills, and this year has taught us some very, very new skills, like online communication, how to communicate online with the rest of the world, with people from different cultures, how to manage cross-cultural teams, etc. So we have learned a lot of things this past year. Yes, just I think my plan, I don't have like a definite plan. For example, you know, this traditional question, like, where do you see yourself in 3, 5, 10 years time? It's hard to say, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's good to strategize. It's good to have a strategy, or at least some sort of a plan. So yeah, my plan is to continue doing the cross-cultural work, and to be growing professionally in this field.
All right. So any last advice for all the listeners out there?
Right. So something inspirational. Should be something inspirational.
Or very
I'd say,
helpful. Yeah. So
well, keep dreaming. Keep about nice things, nice destinations. Travel more, learn foreign languages, because that's another interesting thing you can do. It's a key to unlocking a lot of cultures when you learn foreign languages. Also, that's a way to understand how other people think, and because a lot of our culture is reflected in the language that we speak, the language that we think in, so that's important. And yeah, be open-minded, as you said earlier. So I'm just going to repeat that. I think being non-judgmental is very, very important, and be open to new challenges.
I think that was a really good advice.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, well, thank you, Marina, for taking the time today and sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and some really funny stories as well when living abroad. And of course, thank you all for watching today. If you like to know more about a specific culture, other cultures, or some training, or even expert training, please comment or send me a message. And if you like what you hear, follow our Culture Talks and share it with others. So talk soon.